Well, hi, Shelley.
Hi, everybody. How we going?
Good. I'm hoping everyone's well, also. In case you haven't noticed, we're in different clothes, which means that there's been some time lapse between Sunday morning sermon and Sunday morning discussion, or Sunday discussion. So we're glad that you tuned in. Thanks. And thanks for taking the time to hear Shelley out. I've had a chance to hear it twice and really enjoyed it. And just want to take some time to ask Shelley some questions, which maybe you have on your mind, or that if you don't, you will once I ask them. So Shelley, in your comments on John, really did appreciate them. Thanks. You said something about John starting his gospel very differently, and you asked us to think about that. And I wanted to know why you think John started his gospel differently than the others.
Yeah, there's this whole idea of this very high Christology. Like I said in the video, it talks about Jesus being Son of God. And in the rest of, or some of the other Gospels, it starts off with this very human, like genealogy, or here's John, or here's what's going on. And it talks to, like, um, well, it just talks about the humanness of God. Whereas John's like, bang, here's God. Actually, God from the start, here we go. And if you happen to miss it, he keeps doing it all the way through the rest of the book. Like, he touches the water and it makes wine. Bang, he's the only person that can do it. He heals a blind man. Bang, he's God. Like, John is just trying to smack it around our heads if we happen to miss it some way, that this is God. Here he is, no mucking around, straight from the beginning. Jesus is God. Here he is, and now he's here on earth. So don't miss it. But John just assumes we so he just keeps telling us over and over and over again.
So how do you think though John's gospel then complements the other gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, as people call them, the synoptic gospels?
Synoptics, yeah. So Matthew, Mark, and Luke kind of follow this very human Jesus, and this human Jesus does get to be the divine Jesus. And you just see it in little more glimpses. John just wishes to show this big breadth of the power of who God is, and he keeps going again to say, like, here's Jesus doing these miracles, these signs that only God could possibly do. But then here's also Jesus saying these things that only God would say, that the Israelites would pick up, the I am statements that we're going to get to. So he's just trying to make it so clear. And that's part of the whole light and darkness thing. Like, you can see it or you won't. It's just one of those things that John continues to play with.
Yeah. I suppose we all need to hear it in different directions, don't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's good. As you were talking about just the cycle of how John tells the story of Jesus, as much as, he starts off with a big divinity reality. At the same time, though, he enters Jesus, or he shows Jesus in these conversations with people, which create some sort of bickering and then a movement towards a decision. And you said something about, as they're often bickering about scriptures, you said that Jesus is Jewish scripture. I thought that was an interesting line. Can you explain what you mean by that?
Yeah, so way back in John 1:1, it talks about the Word was with God. So this is the first introduction we have with Jesus. It's not that Jesus was with God or that the light was with God. It's the Word was with God. And that's that whole revelation thing. When John talks about how light is a revelation, up to this point, the revelation that the Jewish people have of God has been the Jewish scriptures. So that's all they've had. And maybe some crazy encounters that people had that they wrote down, which, were the Old Testament scriptures. So I just think it's funny. Here's these Pharisees having arguments with Jesus about who he actually is in himself. He is the revelation of God, just like the scriptures have been in the past, and just like John calls Jesus in John 1. He was so graceful for them. I would have smacked him around the head with a baseball bat, I think, which is probably why I'm not Jesus.
Yeah. That and a few other things, but yes.
Just a few.
Sure. No, I think it's just a good thing for us to ponder too, though. It's just that interesting dynamic that John sets up, and you're right. It does create this kind of tension that we're supposed to pay attention to, of how do they understand what God has revealed to them, and how is Jesus revealing that, and it puts those two things at friction in a way.
Yeah.
one of the things I felt like you kept asking us to do is think about this light and catching glimpses of it in regular days, and just invited us to reflect on that. And for my own self, as you were asking us to do that, I kept thinking about the many conversations that I've been having with people as we've kind of come up to this lockdown, and people thinking about, both people's health, also about
Mm,
businesses and about finances, and just about the long-term impact on economy, and just our lifestyle. What does that mean? And time in and time again, I've heard people's comments that this light that you're talking about, that Jesus, who shines in the darkness, gives people a different perspective. So money is important, but it's not the ultimate. Um,
mm,
our health is really important, yes, but there's a hope beyond, in case we don't make it through, if you will, in terms of this life. But there's always a hope for something more, or just like, is it just me that we're supposed to take care of, or we're supposed to take care of our neighbors? That Jesus keeps changing the perspective of people and shines light that says there is more to live for. It's not just me, it's others. It's for God and for His glory, and that comes in very practical ways. And I just think that's really, when
mm.
you were saying there's things that make you cry about seeing glimpses of God at work, I've seen it in the conversations of people, in their perspective, and how they even approach what is feeling uncomfortable, but is really actually, it can be an opportunity. Again,
Mm,
not good, but an opportunity to see Jesus at work.
yeah.
So I thought that was cool, and we would love, as Shelley offered, invited, let us know. We want to hear those so we can share them with other people, so we can keep passing those on. Of course, give us your permission. Um, we don't want to take it from you, but we'd love to have you encourage. And as kind of mentioned the devotional thing, if you missed that, go back to the first one, is this idea of jotting down all these things that God is faithful to us.
Mm,
So we can share those in terms of like a big rock cairn, and build this kind of monument, if you will, of God's faithfulness to it, where He's been light to us. So we can all celebrate these glimpses of God's work in us. Well, Shelley, I got one more question for you.
okay.
Um, so as you're talking about light, darkness, Jesus being someone that kind of creates this question, demands a response, what would be some ways that you encourage us to not miss Jesus in this opportunity? How do we not do what some of those in the Gospels that saw this amazing work of God and missed it? How do we not miss Jesus?
Yeah. The first thing I would say is take the time just to. I mean, we've got the time, so you don't have to take it anymore. But take the time to slow down. The things that took a little bit, that you maybe have rushed through, the normal routines that you had, doing worship, or praying while you brush your teeth. Maybe extend those out for just a couple of minutes. Secondly, if something does twinkle, if something does make the hairs on your arms, stand up, or something tugs a little bit up at your heart, or you start to get a bit teary, don't just blink those things away. Don't just kind of go, oh, whatever, and carry on. Maybe in that point, ask the Holy Spirit, hey, what's going on here? What should I be paying attention to? What of you am I seeing? What of your kingdom is being built here? And if there's nothing, if it was just someone opened a door in the backyard, you're like, oh, yeah, cool. But if it is, and the more you start to recognize those things, the more you start to recognize those things. Mm. That's how I know what the difference is, if I'm just crying or if I'm happy crying, because I know what that feels like now. Yeah. So that's two for me. But also be grateful when you go for a walk. Say, Jesus, what's going on here? Mm-hmm. What can you show me? And it might be the neighbor's beers, or it might be something on the ground, or it might be nothing. But in that nothing, you are still outside in sunshine. You've still got food. And be thankful for that, because in Thanksgiving there is this uplifting of our eyes from ourselves to God, who gives it all. That's, in Him all things were made, sort of stuff. So, yeah, those are my probably top three.
That's good. Those are good reminders. No, I think I keep being reminded about both by what you're saying and just in terms of interaction with the staff and others, just that we can think of lockdown as being like limitation, but really I'd like us to think of this as level 4. I just keep thinking of flourishing. How do we like take some of these little bits and pieces, these spaces, these chances to ponder on John, slow down and take a different pace, that really we would open ourselves up to see God in a different way. And not just ourselves, but really long for our neighbors, and even if it's just across the fence. keeping your 2 meters distance because we want to keep the spread of this down. But you get a chance to share something really good. So take this time to let God flourish rather than feel like that you're locked down. So thanks, Shelley. Appreciate your thoughts and your sermon, your teaching, and chance to reflect. And church, we look forward to seeing you again. Make sure you take some time to check out those things for the kids and for the youth, and just know that we are available to you. So by all means, share what's going on. Can contact us, and we'll be getting in contact with you. So peace.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.